All right, let's deep dive into the future of Social Security.
Sounds good.
We've got all these reports from Congress and the Social Security Administration.
Yeah.
They all kind of keep coming back to this question, can we afford retirement?
A lot of people are asking that, and these reports, they offer some pretty interesting insights into how Social Security works.
Yeah?
And the challenges that it faces, like how do these benefits get calculated?
Right.
And how long can the system actually keep paying them out? Things like that.
Okay, so maybe let's start with KLA.
Sure.
Cost of living adjustments.
Right.
That directly affects how much money people are getting every month.
You're absolutely right. CLA is super important. It's how Social Security benefits keep up with inflation.
Right.
So your purchasing power isn't eroded over time. Right now, we use this thing called C-CPI-U,
Okay.
Consumer Price Index for urban wage earners and clerical workers.
Wow, that's a mouthful.
Yeah. It basically measures how prices change for a basket of goods and services,
Yeah.
the stuff that those workers usually buy.
So if the cost of that basket goes up, Social Security benefits go up too.
Exactly.
To match.
It's all about protecting retirees, right? So they don't lose buying power as inflation goes up. But here's the thing.
Okay.
A lot of these reports, they're arguing that C-CPI-U, maybe it doesn't really reflect how retirees actually spend their money.
Interesting.
Because C-CPI-U, it's based on how urban wage earners spend, not retirees.
Right.
And those can be pretty different.
Okay, I see. So is there like a better way to measure inflation specifically for retirees?
Well, that's what some of these reports are saying. They're suggesting switching to something called a chained CPI.
Okay.
Like the C-CPI-U.
Another acronym.
I know, right? But this one, it's designed to consider how people change their buying habits when prices change.
So give me an example.
Okay, so let's say the price of gas just goes way up.
Right.
People might start driving less. Maybe they take public transportation more.
Sure.
A chain CPI would capture that.
Okay.
But the CPI-U that we use now might not fully reflect that shift.
I see.
And that difference in how we're measuring things, it could really impact your COA adjustments.
Yeah, I bet.
One study, they estimated that switching to this chained CPI could result in QLAs that are, about 0.3 percentage points lower each year.
Okay.
That might not seem like a lot,
Right.
but over time, it adds up, especially because retirement can last for decades.
Right, decades. Yeah, so even a tiny change to how we calculate TUA
Exactly.
could have a big impact long term
Exactly.
on retirees and their finances.
Absolutely.
But how does this all connect back to the Social Security Trust Fund
Right.
and its ability to actually pay out these benefits?
That's where it gets even more complicated. The trust fund is kind of like a giant savings account.
Okay.
All the Social Security taxes go in, and then benefits get paid out of it.
Okay.
For years, more money was going in than going out.
Got it.
So the trust fund was building up reserves. But as more baby boomers retire and people are living longer, the system's got this growing funding gap.
So the big question is Social Security going broke?
Well, not exactly. The projections actually show that the trust fund will be depleted by the early 2030s.
Okay.
But even after that happens, Social Security will still be able to pay out something like 75% of the promised benefits
Okay.
just from the incoming payroll taxes.
So that is reassuring in a way, but a 25% cut to benefits would be pretty tough for a lot of people.
Oh, absolutely. A big blow for sure. That's why these reports are looking at a bunch of different options, to shore up the finances, make sure Social Security is around for the long haul.
Okay.
It's about solvency.
So we talked about CLA, the trust fund. What else are they looking at, to make sure Social Security has a future?
Well, one big thing is the full retirement age.
Right.
Right now, it's gradually increasing to 67.
Right, for people born in 1960 or later.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. So how does the retirement age actually impact how healthy Social Security is financially?
It's pretty straightforward. If you raise the retirement age, people get benefits for a shorter time.
Makes sense.
Less strain on the system. Some reports even suggest raising it more.
Like to?
Maybe 69 or even higher.
Wow. So that means people would have to work longer.
Yeah, that's the trade-off.
Right, before they could fully retire.
Of course. And not everyone would be happy about that. Yeah, it's a tough one, especially for people with really physical jobs or, health problems and stuff. But we got to talk about the trust fund ratio, too.
Okay.
It's basically how we measure how financially healthy the system is, comparing what it has to what it'll have to pay out.
Yeah.
And get this, raising the retirement age actually really affects that ratio.
Really?
Makes the trust fund last longer,
Okay.
extends how many years it can cover those full benefits.
So even though delaying retirement, maybe it's not the best for everyone.
Right.
it does buy Social Security some time.
For sure. Time to
Yeah.
figure things out.
To figure things out.
Okay.
Okay. Are they thinking about other adjustments to boost that ratio, that trust fund ratio?
Absolutely. One of the big ones is the taxable maximum.
Okay, remind me what that is again.
It's basically the most you can earn before you stop paying Social Security taxes.
Right.
In 2023, it was $160,200.
Okay.
But a lot of reports want to raise it, maybe even phase it up, so more of what you earn gets taxed.
Okay, so if someone makes like $200,000 a year,
Right
now they only pay Social Security taxes on that first $160,200.
Exactly. That's the idea behind these changes.
Gotcha.
If you increase the taxable maximum, more money flows into Social Security. Helps the trust fund, improves the ratio, everything's connected.
Sounds like it makes sense, but wouldn't that also mean higher taxes for the people who make more money?
True. People with higher incomes, they definitely see their Social Security taxes go up.
Yeah.
It's a trade-off, for sure. It's a debate about fairness, about who should be paying for Social Security. It's a lot to balance, right? Making sure it works financially, but is also fair to everyone. Are there other things they're considering besides this taxable maximum to make Social Security stronger?
There are. One that's really interesting is finding different ways to fund it.
Okay.
Most reports, they just talk about changing things within the current system,
Right.
But they're starting to say we need to have bigger conversations about how we pay for this safety net as a society,
So like not just using payroll taxes anymore, like we do for Social Security right now.
Exactly. Some experts think we should use some general tax revenue for Social Security, or even come up with new dedicated taxes.
Wow.
These are big ideas, maybe controversial for some folks.
Yeah, I bet.
But it shows that people are realizing maybe payroll taxes alone aren't enough to keep Social Security going strong.
Yeah. This is complicated. So many different things to think about.
Right. COLA, retirement age, the taxable maximum, now maybe new ways to fund it.
It's a lot. Definitely highlights just how complex Social Security is. Makes it tough for policymakers, right? They got to keep it working for everyone now and in the future.
Yeah, that's a lot of pressure on them. But what about for the average person? What does all this mean for someone planning for their retirement?
Yeah, it's a lot for anyone to wrap their head around.
Yeah. I bet some of our listeners are feeling a little overwhelmed right now. All these potential changes and how it all affects their own retirement.
It's natural to feel that way. It's a complicated system, so many different ideas floating around. But the whole reason we're even talking about this is because we want everyone to have a secure retirement. That's the goal, right?
Exactly. So maybe instead of getting lost in all the little details, what are some of the big things our listeners should keep in mind?
Okay, the most important thing. Social Security isn't going anywhere. It's not disappearing.
Right.
Even with this funding gap we're talking about, it's still going to be there, a safety net for retirees.
That's a good point. Really important to remember that. It's easy to get scared, Read those headlines about Social Security's problems and think it's just going to vanish. But that's not the case.
Yep. But we do have to be realistic. Changes are probably coming. CLA, retirement age, that taxable maximum, those things will probably change.
Right.
And that will change how much people get in benefits.
So basically, everyone needs to stay informed, pay attention to what's being proposed, and think about how it'll affect them personally.
Exactly. Information is power, especially when you're planning for your future financially. And don't be shy about asking questions. Talk to a financial advisor, look up some Social Security experts, even contact your elected officials. Your opinion matters. Be part of the conversation about how to make this program work.
It's all about taking charge, right? Not just sitting back and waiting to see what happens.
Absolutely. So let's talk about something we touched on earlier, that idea of not just relying on Social Security for retirement.
Yeah, having other savings and investments.
Can't stress that enough, especially with all these possible changes coming down the line. Putting all your eggs in the Social Security basket, that could be risky.
So what can our listeners do? What are some steps to build a more solid plan for retirement?
First things first, you got to know where you stand. What's your financial situation right now? What are your goals for retirement?
Okay.
How much money will you need each month to live comfortably? What are your expenses going to look like? Once you know that, then you can start figuring out different ways to save and invest.
Got it. Are there any specific strategies that usually work well?
It really depends. Everyone's situation is different, how much risk you're comfortable with, how much time you have until retirement. But in general, those employer-sponsored retirement plans like 401k or 403bs, those are a good place to start.
Yeah.
A lot of times your employer will match what you put in.
It's like free money?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And don't forget about IRAs. Individual retirement accounts, they come with tax benefits, and you've got lots of choices for how to invest your money.
So it sounds like there's a lot out there to help people build a good retirement, even if Social Security benefits change in the future.
That's what I want people to take away from this. Social Security is important, but it's not everything. Take charge of your planning, explore those savings and investment options, and stay informed about what's happening with Social Security. You can have a financially secure retirement, a good one, even with all these uncertainties. You really can.
That's a great message. Thank you so much for sharing all of this with us today. This deep dive has been really eye-opening. Social Security is complicated, and there are a lot of big decisions ahead.
My pleasure. And remember, we all have a say in what happens to Social Security. It's our future. Let's work together to keep it strong, make sure it's there for everyone who needs it now and for generations to come.
To all our listeners out there, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope it's helped you feel more in control of your financial future, more confident and clear about how to approach retirement. Keep learning, keep planning, and keep talking about these issues.